Frazier, and tonight's first baseman Dylan Moore round things out for Scott Service and the Mariners. And on the mound for the Angels, Shohei Ohtani, who last time around snapped the losing streak June 9th against Boston, single-handedly did the job himself, added a homer along with his 7 innings of one-run baseball in a 5-2 Angels win.
Yeah, threw 100 pitches in that game, 62 strikes, a number of pitches at least 100 miles an hour. A couple of them touched 101 miles an hour for Shohei. My go-tos for Shohei to have a big game here against the M's here tonight up in Seattle, because you got to establish that splitter early in the game, and that's what we've seen in the last game out against Boston. You get that in there early, you'll get more chases, and that strike zone command of his fastball. If he's able to spot the corners with his fastball, that makes his secondary pitches that much better.
Shohei struck out 6 against the Red Sox last time around. 3 of them came on the fastball. And in the evolution of Shohei Ohtani, we'll talk about how the repertoire has changed a little bit this year, and he's as effective as ever. The Angels outfield for Phil Nevin tonight: Brandon Marsh, Mike Trout, and Taylor Ward. In the infield, third to first, Duffy, Wade, Rengifo, and Walsh. Max Stassi behind the plate, receiving the MVP Shohei Ohtani tonight.
Walshy over at first base, one of the 3 finalists for Gold Glove at first base. Yuli Gurriel won it, but he's been outstanding defensively at first this year for the Halos.
J.P. Crawford, Julio Rodriguez, and Jesse Winker for Seattle. Crawford starts play at 297. He's hit safely in 15 of his last 18 after a sluggish start, pushing that average closer to 300 here in mid-June. Crawford is one of only 3 Mariners hitters in the lineup tonight, Gooby, that have previously faced Shohei Ohtani. And in the great debate over who has an advantage in a first-time meeting, for those that believe the pitcher has that advantage, that should work in Shohei's favor tonight.
Yeah, because you don't know his tendencies. And we're seeing so many creative things from Shohei going in secondary pitch counts. He's been throwing his fastball a lot more. He's pitching backwards.
2 balls and a strike to count to J.P. Crawford. "35 games against the Angels in his career, a .307 hitter against the Angels is J.P. Crawford.
Looks like he shook off a cutter. Maybe he might want to throw a fastball away.
Ohtani and Stassi have what they want. 2 balls and a strike to Crawford.
Came back with a cutter on that one. Last game out, he started throwing his cutter a few more times to get back into counts. He can control that movement on his pitch, because sometimes compared to his 4-seam fastball.
You know, when Shohei was a part of the Angels' losing streak, first 2 games that he pitched during that streak were, I guess, pedestrian, not Shohei-like. Crawford sends a high fly ball out to right, and Ward measures this one off for round number 1. Part of Shohei's problem had been retiring a leadoff hitter. It's something that he's doing only 66% of the time. We're talking about leading off an inning, not just a game. The league average is just a little over 70%. And for Shohei to be below league average, even though it's slightly below in anything, is something we're not used to seeing.
And you go back to those 2 starts, he said he struggled before the last one. He gave up home runs on 3-2 counts after long at bats. He gave up 2 home runs. Springer got him in that one against the Jays too. And Carpenter in New York.
Here's Julio Rodriguez now, the exciting rookie who leads Major League Baseball with 17 stolen bases to go along with 8 homers and 28 RBIs. Guy they're calling J-Rod in this part of the country. A ball and no strikes from Ohtani.
We got a chance to see him earlier today. I didn't realize how big he is.
Yeah.
And for a guy that big to run that well, it's pretty impressive.
He took some time before the game to sign autographs for his many fans. He's turned into an early fan favorite up here. And he's never been a secret in terms of being a prospect. Big swing and a miss here, 2-1. Every once in a while, a guy will play his way into prospect status, but Julio Rodriguez was designated for stardom from the time he signed at the age of 14. At 16, rather. If Seattle had signed him at 14, they'd be in trouble.
By the way, you see Shohei what he's trying to do. When you look at numbers against Rodriguez, 323 with 5 home runs versus fastballs, but just 206 versus breakables. He's throwing a number of sliders in the sequence. A little bit better against off speed. That includes changeups and splitters, although Shohei's splitters in a different planet.
Yeah, that's a pitch that Shohei's not throwing as frequently as he had the last couple of years. Here's the 2-2 home, and he made him chase it. That's been a problem for Julio Rodriguez. Young player, still feeling his way through. He has a chase rate of 24% on non-competitive misses, and those are pitches that miss the strike zone by a lot, like that slider.
Boy, that was tight. Look at that movement. That was almost like a wiffle ball. But I've seen a number of highlights here. Exactly right about that one, Matt. He does go after that pitch often.
So 2 gone for Ohtani now, and that'll bring up an all-star last year, the former Red Jesse Winker, who's hit only 4 homers since coming to Seattle. A .214 batting average. Winker leads the American League in walks, but that's not the kind of statistic that the Mariners were as interested in as runs scored and runs driven in.
I just looked where his hands are set up, man. I would think as a pitcher, especially one that throws as hard as Shohei, you're going to test him inside even with a cutter.
Winker facing Ohtani for the first time in his career and finds himself in a quick 0-2 hole.
Winker so far this year with 46 strikeouts and 224 at-bats.
I mean, this was a guy who last year had put himself on the map among the elite power hitters in the National League.
Oh, that's all over the strike zone.
Shohei thought he had him tied up on a fastball. You know, that's going to be something that we're going to watch tonight, Gooby, and I'm glad you bring it up. The home plate umpire tonight is David Arrieta, who is behind home plate for just the 5th time in his career, and he has a strike percentage in his first 4 games working the plate that is incredibly low by the standards of other home plate umpires. And we looked at that and kind of guessed that it might not be a pitcher's zone tonight. If that pitch call is any indication,
yeah.
Oh boy.
And especially for both these pitchers that throw a lot of strikes and rely on corners and then getting chases. But to get those chases off the corners, you got to get those pitches called first.
See what Shohei comes back with on 2-2. 2 gone, bases empty. That's a miss, and it's a full count. Would he flip a little slider up there? What was that?
I think that was his splitter. Usually you'll see it's a weird delivery. The way the baseball comes out of his hand, his first or 2 splitters they'll throw during the course of a game.
Well, that one had a little hump in it, too. It didn't have that sharp tilt. Let's see if he tries it again. Here's the 3-2.
I mean,
come on. It's going to be one of those nights.
2 pitches in the strike zone.
It's going to be one of those nights.
And that's one of those times when you've never seen a pitcher as a home plate umpire. We've seen it before with Shohei. You go behind the plate and watch the pitches. That's in the strike zone. 2 of those pitches are in the zone. Called balls.
So Jesse Winker, after being behind 0-2, adding to his American League leading walk total. And that'll bring up Eugenio Suarez. Seattle DH tonight has reached base safely in 15 of his last 17. 12 homers for this ex-Red. Ian Winker coming in the same offseason mega deal. And he bats with a man on and 2 away. Shattered bat. A base hit. First and second. That bat broke into 4 or 5 pieces.
Yeah. Remember last time out with Shohei at the plate and on the mound, a bat with shadow went flying right at him, just missed him. Boy, that had some run action on him. There's barely any of the handle even left. You see how Suarez, how strong he is to get that into the outfield, though. And all of a sudden, instead of being in the dugout, now you have 2 on. And you're throwing a lot of extra pitches.
No, I know it. And not to bellyache up here, but that should have been 1, 2, 3, 2 punch outs, and the Angels should be grabbing their bats right now. Instead, it's the switch hitting catcher Cal Raleigh, who's driven in 13 runs in his last 16 games. Raleigh in from the left side.
Again, it's going to be up to Max Stassi at some point. He'll say, hey, listen, a couple of those pitches were in the zone, or even Shohei, and then they'll get all worked out.
Taylor Trammell waiting on deck for Seattle. They're trying to get something cooking here with 2 gone in their half of the first. Way out in front.
It's a good tight slider. He's thrown that pitch a lot more this season. A whiff percentage of 41.5%.
Yeah, his slider generates a whiff percentage that's 10% higher than the rest of his pitches combined. And it's 2-1 now. Shohei showing some signs of frustration. He's trying to get some definition on the strike zone with the home plate umpire.
And that one, I think, was off the plate. But still.
Two balls and a strike to count to Cal Raleigh, who at one point this year was sent down to AAA, resummoned, and has been better since returning. And that one gets past Stassi. Free 90 feet for both Winker and Suarez.
They're going pitch count with a man on second. Boy, that fastball had cut action to it. You see the target where Stassi was setting up. Shohei a little bit frustrated because he's made some pitches he thought were in the strike zone and called the ball. Big pitch here now for Shohei and the Angels, with 2 guys now in scoring position for an offense that's struggling of late.
Out in front of that same pitch on a swing and a miss.
The creative one, Shohei Ohtani. This never, as a hitter, you can never feel comfortable sitting on a pitch against him. Even if it's a fastball count, okay, or even a breakable count. You think, all right, I could sit something off speed, and he throws a fastball by you.
Yeah, there's kind of no such thing with Ohtani on the mound. Here's his 3-2 home, and Raleigh bounces it up the first base line for Walsh, who'll do it himself. And nothing comes of the walk, single, and wild pitch in the home half of the first.
I think Shohei might ask Arrieta where some of those pitches are.
The home half of the second inning. Late night for the Halos last night. Them getting into Seattle, the team hotel, at about 4 o'clock this morning. Their starting pitcher, Shohei Ohtani, of course, responsible for breaking up that no-hitter late in the game last night with 1 out in the 9th inning. So were there any conversations today about the late night last night and him being on the mound hitting and pitching today? Well, Phil Nevin said he never worries about Shohei and the way that he takes care of his body. In fact, as the game was starting last night, he turned to Matt Wise and said, hey, did we send our starting pitcher up to Seattle ahead of time? And he said, Phil, he's walking up to the plate right now. He said, oh yeah, I forgot. But he said he's got plenty of rest. He manages his time as well as anyone, guys.
No doubt, no doubt. I mean, Phil's as aware as anybody that Ohtani is simply a different creature.
Yes, yes, he is.
And Shohei back to work in the bottom half of the second for Taylor Trammell, Abraham Toro, and Adam Frazier. Scoreless early on tonight.
Boy, that's another pitch in the strike zone. Not called a strike.
You know, I'm convinced of this, Gooby, and you and I talk about this a lot. I feel like umpires, especially younger umpires who've never seen him work before, I think Ohtani goofs them up. It's one thing to be an opposing hitter. I think younger umpires are off-put sometimes by not only his deception, but his repertoire, and I think he catches a lot of umpires off guard.
Yeah, and some of that late movement, they're giving up on and thinking it's out of the strike zone, but that got a lot of the strike zone again. And then he calls that one, which is out of the strike zone. All right, we're back. But Shohei against Trammell here, I mean, he knows he hits the baseball exceptionally well on the first pitch. He's 6 for 7 this year. He starts him off with a slow curveball. And now he's throwing a couple breaking balls during this sequence.
The Seattle team has been offensively challenged the last couple of years. Last year as a team they batted .226. Up a little bit on that number this year. And there's Shohei's second strikeout of the game.
Now that was a nasty splitter. You talk about an adjustment from the splitter in the first inning, man, until this inning. That is nasty. Straight down splitter. Starts in the middle of the plate, ends up below the strike zone by quite a bit.
Leadoff hitter retired now for the switch hitting third baseman Abraham Toro. First pitch heater fouled away. And there's only one pitcher in baseball that has thrown a higher percentage of first pitch breaking balls than Ohtani, and that's Nestor Cortes of the Yankees, who we saw a couple of weeks ago.
He can get that first pitch in there so effectively, a slow curve or even a slider. Even on occasion he'll throw his splitter.
You know, but if those are trends that you and I and fans are aware of, you know, an opposing lineup's aware of that too, right? So for Shohei Ohtani, more so than anybody, that adaptability, that change from start to start is crucial. You can't fall into patterns like that where an opponent's thinking first pitch, get me over breaking ball each at bat.
And there's some pretty good numbers against him on the first pitch, 429 batting average, including a home run on the first pitch. So he realizes that with certain pitchers and certain hitters, I should say, and that's when he makes the adjustment. Another unbelievable splitter. He has that one working here tonight, which seems to be the case after that one that got away from him in the first inning. It's going to be a difficult task to sit on any pitch if you're Seattle against him.
Here's Adam Frazier now. Back-to-back strikeouts for Ohtani. Adam Frazier was an all-star last year, had a big start to the season in Pittsburgh, was traded to San Diego, and could not replicate that kind of success, nor has he been able to replicate that all-star form early in his Mariners tenure as he opens play tonight, batting just .227.
Yeah, he's a high contact guy. He's a little over 87% contact, but also the hard hit rate is just at 27%.
Boy, he is right on top of the plate, too.
Difficult guy to strike out. Although Shohei Ohtani's already got 2 strikeouts on his splitter with a 1-2 count. Might go right back to it. Yeah, his foot is almost on the chalk.
One-two to Frazier. Number 9 hitter Dylan Moore waiting on deck with 2 out and the base is empty. Scoreless here in the home second, the 2-2 home. And Frazier lines that into center field for a 2-out base hit.
That's that contact, and that soft contact works a base hit into center field on a slider. Just a 182 batting average versus Shohei's slider this season. He's able to make contact, which he generally will do.
Dylan Moore getting a start at first base tonight by design. Ty France is usually out there for the Mariners at that position. He's having a great run this year. But France getting a scheduled night off to open the series, which I find a little unusual, if only because there's a doubleheader coming on Saturday. And you might guess that that would be a day for somebody to sit. Maybe the rotation for Scott Service is that he'll sit other regulars in that doubleheader Saturday. 0-1 the count to Moore. You know, we mentioned that Shohei Ohtani's only other starting assignment here, Gooby, came in 2018. There is nobody in the lineup tonight that faced him that day. There has been such steady turnover in Seattle under the current baseball operations administration that, you know, they just don't retain a lot of players. That's a good slider in for a strike, and it's 1-2. Scott Service, coming off a 90-win campaign a season ago, his winningest year as Seattle manager, and there were big expectations for them to build on that this year.
And the shot that last game of the year, which the Angels were able to beat him, and Shohei Ohtani with a leadoff home run in that game to knock him out of potential play-in game for the playoffs last year.
Boy, that was that wild final series of the season. Mitch Haniger kind of salvaged their season on the Friday game with some heroics. And then the Angels brought the curtain down on their season officially the next couple days. Still 2-2 to Dylan Moore.
He's able to fight off a pretty tough slider, and Shohei's been throwing his slider and a curveball a little bit more this season. It's been effective for him. High whiff percentage. See if the creative one thinks fastball in on him, because he's diving out over the plate. You see that usage this season. And he did go inside on him.
He's got a piece of it to stay alive. Let's go back to those numbers, because that's an interesting breakdown. The two breaking balls, the slider and the curve. Slider usage up.
Same thing with a curveball, and the whiff percentage. Significant difference this year as compared to last year in his magical MVP season.
And Moore lifts a fly ball out to the corner in left. Marsh shy of the track to retire the side. Two scoreless innings on both sides of the scorecard. On to the third in Seattle. To tonight's Blue Moon bright spot, Shohei Ohtani's pitch selection and the changes, subtle as they may be in some cases, last year to this. Fastball percentage down. He has thrown more breaking balls, and the difference between breaking ball and off speed, we'll call that the difference between a slider and a curveball, and the difference between a change and a split change.
But he has such a good feel for his slider now. There's times where he saves that splitter. It's a feel pitch for him. Like most changeups are feel pitches, whether it's a circle changeup or a split. He's thrown a couple really, really good ones for strikeouts today, but his slider, he has a feel because he can change speeds on it. It could be 85, but also could be 89 miles an hour with his slider.
There's J.P. Crawford to lead things off in the third. Well, the slider's been very effective for Shohei so far. He's thrown 7 of them, and he has induced 5 swings and misses on that pitch. Crawford rolls over, a bouncer for Walsh, who's been busy defensively. Oh, boy.
That was a little two-step they had first base. Shohei's going, all right, my bad.
I mean, that was a moving screen there, Shohei.
He thought about flipping it to Shohei, and then he decided to take it himself. I always believe, and I talked to a number of first basemen when I was on the mound, I always said, hey, if you could take it yourself, always do so. You eliminate a throw, or you eliminate the fact that we might miss the base cover in the bag as a pitcher. You never know. Or you can have a guy running down and trying to step on the back of your foot on the way down the line. So just eliminate that, take it as a first baseman.
Here's Julio Rodriguez now with 1 gone. I would imagine that Julio Rodriguez watched that Mike Trout homer in the last half inning through a little different lens than some might. I'm talking about a rookie just making his way in the big leagues with enormous upside. And a guy who keeps a number of baseball-related video cues on his cell phone, including a pedestrian highlight of Mike Trout's from a couple of years ago, where Mike beat out an infield single with nothing more than pure hustle out of the batter's box. And when he was asked about Mike Trout before the game today, he said he's one of my favorite players in baseball. And I keep this video of him beating out an infield single on my phone to remind me that if the most talented player in the game can hustle like that, then I should hustle like that.
That is a great point. And that's something you love to see, that from a talented young player like this, realizing that I'm going to hustle out everything. Even if I have a bad swing, you just never know if the guy's going to make a play on the field. So that's why you run down there hard every time.
Still 2 balls and 2 strikes.
Now he's thrown him a number of sliders. He threw a couple of strikes early in this at bat, though. He laid off basically laid off the pitch he swung at the first time up. So I think Shohei now has him set up to get him to swing at a non-strike on a slider,
the same way he did to strike him out back in the first.
He was patient the first 2, and now he's set up for it. Threw him a split instead.
Winker next with 1 out and the base is empty. 2-0 Angels on the Trout homer. 3-2 to Julio Rodriguez. Payoff pitch home. Yeah, a little pop for Rengifo will do the job for out number 2. Erica, you've got a little bit more on the Mutual Admiration Society between Mike Trout and Julio Rodriguez.
Not necessarily Julio Rodriguez, but you mentioned him talking about how admirable it was, the hustle from the superstar in Mike Trout. His manager was talking about that before the game. He was talking a little bit about how busy he was on defense last night out in center field, tracking down all of those balls in the gap. But he also wanted to specifically point out there was a grounder he hit to third base. The way he got down the line, he said that was an example for a lot of the guys, regardless of what the score might have looked like. Him hustling out of the box, he wanted that to be the example that he saw for his teammates during that game last night.
Yeah, that's great stuff. In an otherwise kind of forgettable night for the Angels, the best player in the sport is still busting his rear end.
Yep. And that's the kind of example you want to see and young players to look into and want to be like Mike Trout.
They want to be like Mike.
That was a little layup for you there.
Yeah.
That was like Magic Johnson feeding James Worthy on a breakaway.
Somebody else probably has that copyrighted. You know what I mean? Ball and a strike to count to Jesse Winker. Winker was the batter that Ohtani appeared to have struck out when a really good 1-2 pitch was called for a ball, and then Winker eventually worked the walk off Ohtani, something he's done regularly this year. He finds himself in another 1-2 hole here.
He did a nice job taking that splitter there. That was a good one. Especially after you get the lower third of the strike zone with a slider, then you throw a splitter at 90 miles an hour, and he didn't get him to chase it.
Yeah, he's thrown him 3 splits now and has not gotten a swing from Winker yet.
Shook off a fastball, a curveball here now. You got to make sure that's below the zone.
Still 2 balls and 2 strikes. Winker played in only 1 game with the Reds after August 15th last year. And again, this was a guy that was on pace to do all kinds of damage. Ended up with 24 homers, a .305 average. An on-base average of almost 400 last year because of his ability to take the walk.
That's a good pitch.
Got him. And this time Shohei gets the call. 99 right at the bottom of the zone.
And that was a strike too, by the way. Winker may not think so, but that got the lower part of the strike zone.
Gotcha. Sun won't be setting for another, 2.5 hours or so up here.
I was going to say another 3 weeks here at night.
2-0 Angels as we go to the bottom of the 4th. Matt Vasgersian with Mark Gubazan, Erica Weston. Good to have you with us on Valley Sports tonight. Mike Trout's homer, number 17 on his year, has lifted Shohei Ohtani to a 2-0 advantage early on tonight. He'll face Suarez, Raleigh, and Trammell here in the 4th. Eugenio Suarez singled on a first pitch shattered bat base hit back in the first.
He looked like he was willing to wear that slider inside. He was going to try to turn into that one. Backed up on Shohei.
Oh, yank it. And it's 1-1.
It's almost the exact same spot. Back-to-back sliders. This got underneath the baseball.
By the way, that graphic we just saw on Suarez, I think for a lot of casual fans, it might catch you off guard if you're asked the question, who's hit the most homers since the start of 2018? I don't think a lot of fans would start their answers with Eugenio Suarez. You'd say, Harper, Nelly Cruz, Bryant, Schwarber, Judge, Trout.
Yep. Beats the shift with 3 infielders on the left side of the infield. Just hit a ground ball that may be next year at a second baseman.
We can only hope. Here's Cal Raleigh now. He grounded out, stranding a couple of runners back in the first. And stranding runners is something that Shohei Ohtani has done exceedingly well this year. As he gets in front of Raleigh, 0-1. Only 15% of the base runners to reach against Ohtani have come around to score. That is half the league average. And so far, Shohei has stranded 3 tonight.
Nice job there by Stassi keeping that in front. Muscled up on a splitter. He's not a big ground ball guy, Shohei. He's got 2 ground ball outs so far. They just hit 37.4% ground ball rate. Just a couple double plays turned behind him. A number of guys in the staff, especially the starting staff for the Angels, are big ground ball guys. From Syndergaard to Lorenzen, who's on the bump tomorrow. He's had 10 double plays turned behind him.
That's a nice matchup tomorrow, by the way, with the reigning Cy Young Award winner Robbie Ray and Michael Lorenzen. Raleigh pops it up, way up. Ward. And if that fly ball is struck about a half an hour earlier, that's trouble, because the way the sun sets at T-Mobile beyond the left field foul pole, the first baseman, the right fielder, the second baseman can get caught in such a way that you're looking right into it.
Well, you can see the sun right now, even at this point, so you take away some time and earlier, like you said, Matt, an hour earlier, that's going to be a tough one, because that's going to go right up into that sky. That was off the end of the bat, a slider.
So 1 on, 1 out now for Taylor Trammell, who struck out back in the second.
So far, that's twice now he started Trammell off with a breaking ball first pitch, knowing those numbers, how aggressive he is and how successful he is on a first pitch fastball.
You saw Trammell drafted by the Reds, acquired by Cincinnati, traded from the Padres to the Mariners in a 7-player swap a couple years ago. San Diego and Seattle are frequent trade partners, and perhaps part of that is due to the familiarity of personnel. They share a spring training complex in Peoria, Arizona. Raleigh not a threat to run. He does not have a stolen base attempt this year.
Oh, got that fastball in. He threw a slider in, got the corner. Trammell was asking Arrieta where that was on the corner, and then he fires a 96-mile-an-hour four-seamer inside. Split time, it looks like. You remember he struck him out with a splitter to his first at bat.
I think I misspoke a moment ago. It's Suarez at first, not Raleigh, but neither one of those guys has a stolen base attempt, so the same thing rings true, and it's 2 balls and 2 strikes to Trammell.
This time he laid off a splitter. That's a 90-mile-an-hour splitter. Feels like Trammell's trying to punch the ball to the left side of the infield, though. He was a little bit late on a fastball.
I mean, it's not a terrible idea, right? It's not going to help you on a splitter. Full count now.
With a strikeout pitcher and a guy at first base at Suarez that hasn't attempted a stolen base, that's not a time you do that. But Shohei doesn't throw many fastballs 3-2.
Split. I'm going to give you 2-1 that it's a splitter here. Got him.
That was nasty. Wow. Sometimes, even though you're a hitter, you're opposing somebody like Shohei Ohtani, you always become a fan for a second. Like, wow, how did he throw that one?
Yeah.
That's 3-2.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of bend on a slider. I mean, wow.
2 at-bats for Taylor Trammell against Shohei Ohtani. 2 strikeouts, and now Abraham Toro with 2 away. He too struck out. That came back in the second.
Saw Mike Blowers just a second ago. He does the color analyst job. He was a good hitter back in his day with Seattle. He goes, Shohei's throwing a lot of sliders. I said, just keep an eye on the creative one. You're going to see some changes during the course of the game, and he's got a feel for the slider right now.
He's thrown Toro 4 pitches, all of them strikes. This one in play. Shohei picks it up and does it himself. Another runner left stranded in the 4th. Mike Trout's 2-run homer, the difference so far tonight. Trout bats second as we go to the top of the 5th. The bottom of the 5th inning, and let's put this time of the game into our Kia player profile for Shohei. And his strikeout rate, 3rd time through the order, which is what he is approaching shortly, is the best in Major League Baseball at almost 36%.
That is amazing in an era where we're always seeing managers go to a bullpen when they get around to that 3rd time through a lineup. He gets better because he's reading what the hitter is trying to do against him. His 1st and 2nd time through, and now all of a sudden he knows exactly how he's going to attack them. And when he gets ahead of the count, he's able to finish him off with an assortment of pitches to go to, whether it's his 99-mile-an-hour fastball, his splitter, slider, curve, or even his cutter. You haven't seen his cutter used yet tonight.
He'll face the 8-9, then top of the order hitters here in the 5th. 2-0 Angels. Mike Trout's homer, the difference. Number 17 for Mike, coming in the top of the 3rd inning tonight. Adam Frazier singled against Ohtani on a 2-strike slider with 2 gone back in the 2nd, but it looked like Shohei was going to strike out the side. Flips a curveball up there that misses. Remember those numbers, 54% breaking ball first pitch of an at-bat. He hasn't done it as often tonight.
It's amazing how Frazier just stays right in there. Now he moved out of the batter's box because I think he was anticipating a different pitch run. He just stays right in there on top of the plate.
He's even closer to the plate here this 2nd at-bat against Ohtani than he was earlier tonight.
He's got that chalk out of the way now.
Oh, yeah,
right.
right.
A little closer.
Right.
That's just a suggestion when you go into that batter's box. It seems to be during the course of a game.
It's a long history of obscure chalking with the Seattle Mariners franchise. When Maury Wills was managing this team at the Kingdome in the late 70s, a famous incident when he tried to instruct the groundskeepers to chalk the batter's box closer to the mound in order to counteract Ricky Henderson stealing a base. It was against Oakland, and Rick Langford's curveball.
Wow, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of shenanigan doesn't really work. It wouldn't work today because somebody would notice it, and in the case of the late 70s A's, it was Billy Martin who noticed it and went out there and had the umpires actually measure with a tape measure. And then the groundskeeper fessed up, and fines were levied.
Well, I remember when Rod Carew was the hitting coach with the Angels for a while. That front part of just in front of home plate was a little bit hard to that dirt, especially because we had some sinker pitchers in Kansas City. So that baseball would not only, you think, okay, they're going to be routine ground ball outs to hit that dirt and would shoot over the infielders' heads.
Dylan Moore with a little pop-up off the fists to make for the second quick out against Ohtani here in the 5th.
Well, you love those quick outs. Allow Shohei to think and reserve a number of those good pitches for later in the game here.
6 pitches and 2 outs here in the 5th.
And you go back to that first inning, that could have been a lot different. A couple pitches called.
That's right.
And forced another, 7, 8 pitches. But he made his point, and since that time, that quick conversation by Shohei, he's gotten those borderline pitches called his way, which are strikes.
Ohtani has kept J.P. Crawford quiet so far tonight, 0 for 2. Looking for his second 1-2-3 inning of the game.
Pretty close, and this is a little bit out of the strike zone at 96.
Five strikeouts for Ohtani so far tonight. Punched out 6 last time around against the Red Sox in that dominant performance that snapped a losing streak.
Trying to be that stopper again.
2 balls and a strike. Last 2 pitches have kind of squirted out of his hand, and he's fallen behind Crawford 3-1.
And what you mentioned the numbers for Crawford against the Angels. He's had some really long at-bats, too. He sees quite a few pitches. A lot of that damage is not done on a first or second pitch. They're long at-bats for him.
Came right after him with a fastball. It's lined out to left. Diving is Marsh, and he makes the catch to retire the side.
He is outstanding on his jump and his reaction out in left field. Marsh, great defensive play, gutsy play just before hits the outfield grass. Shohei Ohtani loving that defense.
Valley Sports is brought to you by your Southern California Chevy dealers and by Carl's Jr. Sink your teeth into the new Primal Menu and Beyond Raptor at Carl's Jr. Feed your happy. And by the OC Healthcare Agency. Build your healthiest self at angels.ocnavigator.org. Captain Stubing. Isaac the bartender.
Yes.
They're all on board. A beautiful night here in Seattle. And so far so good on the scoreboard with a 2-0 Angels lead. Back with Mark Gubazan, Erica Weston, Matt Vasgersian, Julio Rodriguez, Jesse Winker, and Eugenio Suarez against Shohei Ohtani in the 6th. Here's another quick out for Shohei. Yeah! Matt Duffy getting it done despite the fact that Julio Rodriguez was really cooking up the line.
They're checking it right now. Rodriguez thought he beat it. I thought they got him. We'll see. It's a long look in for Scott Service, and here say you got him. What a play. That's a great play by Matt Duffy, because Rodriguez flies down the line. The transfer was excellent, and you're going to play back because of that power. Quickly got rid of it, and a lot on the throw and the stretch gets him just as his foot hits the bag. That is excellent. See that? That's a great angle. Just the foot.
Sure is. That sure is. That could not have been any closer. And to our earlier conversation about Rodriguez busting it up the line,
yes,
he almost beat that out. 1 gone for Jesse Winker now.
Wow, that's an excellent play by Matt Duffy. So that's down to 2 one-pitch outs so far in the last couple of innings for Shohei.
I mean, this is the kind of thing that could get him through 7 tonight, potentially. 2 balls and no strikes. Ohtani threw a season-high 100 pitches last time around, as Gooby mentioned, against the Red Sox on June 9th. That got him through 7. He has fallen behind Winker, 3 balls and no strikes. Winker taken all the way, takes ball 4.
Boy, and everyone's looking where that was. Again, Shohei's going, where's that at again? By the way, that's a 3-0 splitter. And that's in the upper part of the strike zone. And everyone, Winker, Stassi, Shohei.
So now Eugenio Suarez, who's been a little bit of a problem, he's got a couple of base hits tonight. It's a .230 hitter that's got a ton of strikeout in his game. But he has 2 of the Seattle 3 hits this evening. Only 3 singles against Ohtani tonight.
Got around that one again. Last time up he did the same thing. Didn't get on top of it. Suarez has rolled into 5 double plays this season.
High fly ball for Marsh. And out number 2.
Did he hit it too high?
I mean, I guess if there is such a thing.
He hit it too high.
That hits the roof at the Kingdom. I mean, I say facetiously, but he hit it pretty high.
Yeah, he knew it too. He knew he got underneath it.
So still a chance at a quick inning despite a 4-pitch walk. And now it's the switch hitting catcher Cal Raleigh, who is 0 for 2 tonight. Had as much hang time as a Ray Guy punt. 6.9 seconds. Wasn't hang time the name of a Saturday morning show with Dick Butkus, if you can recall?
Right. Yes.
And Runnin' Reggie Theus.
Yes.
Jose Quijada's up in the Angel bullpen. You think they cap? If Shohei retires Raleigh here, is he done after 6? What do you think?
No.
I agree with you, because he has handled the next part of the order pretty easily tonight.
99. You must have heard we were talking about somebody's warming up in the bullpen.
You know, although you know as well as I do that when Shohei knows that he's at the end of the line, that's when he humps up for a couple extra miles. So maybe that's the case tonight. I'm not sure.
Looking for that punch out right now.
Oh, 2 to Raleigh. Got him swinging.
That's a good sound full there with Shohei with the grunt.
I think he's got another inning in him.
I just want to hear that grunt again at 99.